Here to discuss his bill on allowing Sunday liquor sales, we have Duluth Senator Roger Reinert. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad to be here.
And Senator, I pointed out the Duluth because you are a border town. Is that
Right.
one of the reasons why you're a bit more passionate about this issue?
Actually, it's not. I know it's an easy place to go for folks, but it really, to me, is just about the freedom of the marketplace. I'm a little perplexed at the need in the year 2014 for government to tell businesses when they should be open and when they should be closed. And in this situation, we clearly have consumers that want to make purchases, and we have businesses that want to be open. So, if we're all about business, especially small business, why wouldn't we just step out of this? And the fact that 2014 is an unsession, I can't think of any better year to do it.
And you bring up how government shouldn't be telling business what to do, yet in this case it tends to be business telling government that they don't want to be open. That seems to be the argument.
Right. It is convenient for a number of businesses who just don't want to work on Sunday. And I don't know that there's any of us who don't appreciate that. When we're here at the Capitol on a Sunday, I am not a happy camper. But the reality of the year 2014 is that most retail businesses are open. And the reality in this situation, when we look at other comparables, is, not every restaurant is open 24/7, but some are. Not every hardware store is open 24/7. Some are. If you know your clientele and you know your business, you can make the decisions that work best for you and your community and your clientele. And for some people, that is to be open on Sunday.
Let's talk a little bit about what your bill would do before we get into what you plan to do with it.
Yeah. So all the bill does is make it permissible. Right now, it's against state law for a liquor store to be open on a Sunday. And all this would say is you can. It doesn't say you have to be. For store owners that don't want to be open, don't. And for consumers who, for whatever reason, many of them religious, don't want to make a purchase on a Sunday, don't. There's nothing that would require that transaction to happen. But for stores that want to be open and for people who want to make a purchase, it would allow that to happen.
And it's fair to say this transcends just the typical liquor store now. We're talking about brew pubs and tap rooms, and many in the craft brew industry are now supporting you and abolishing this law. How does that kind of change the landscape of liquor versus legislators?
I think in 2014, there are really three things that are going on that make this a pretty viable year for this to happen. And it's kind of the first hurdle to overcome. This is a perennial issue, and it's easy to dismiss. And those who follow the legislature know that the House routinely does a floor amendment that fails terribly, and the press often refers to that as an indication of no support. But what we have going on this year is A, the unsession, and the governor's indication that he would sign a bill if it came to him. B, folks out there, just regular old folks, have really gotten organized. As a Commerce Committee member in the Senate, I now have received over 1,000 emails. I don't know that I've received that many emails on anything in my 5 years at the legislature. So people are engaged and they're contacting their elected officials. But three is the point you just brought up, and that is we now have this burgeoning, blossoming, growing exponentially microbrew industry in Minnesota, of which Duluth has become a real home for it. And those folks, especially on the brew pub side, even with the growler line of revenue for their businesses, cannot send someone home with a growler on a Sunday. It's currently against state law. And so many of them whose margins are fairly thin, especially in the startup phase, see this as an opportunity for them to bring some additional cash into their business.
And I would concur that there's even a fourth thing that has changed exponentially. You have a Republican who is authoring a comparable bill in the House,
right.
Representative Jennifer Loon. Mm-hmm. She is the assistant minority leader, essentially. Now, her bill would just allow local governments to decide whether or not they're going to allow liquor sales. Would you allow for something like this if your bill isn't getting any support?
Absolutely. First of all, Jennifer and I are great friends. We served in the House together, was excited at her interest in this issue. And this idea of a local option is something that I've kicked around as well. In fact, Senator Paul Gazelka, who's the lead Republican in the Senate on the Commerce Committee, and I have had some conversation about it. If it makes sense in a border community, a college town, Minneapolis and St. Paul, and you can convince a city council or a county board, great. There will be places in Minnesota where you have municipal liquor stores, or they're in the center of the state without any near competition, where it might not make sense. It might not fit the community. So I think that's a pretty viable option.
Now, Senator, as the person carrying this bill, do you think you need to do something differently this session to try to gain the support it needs to get passed off the Senate floor?
Well, I think there are things we can always do better. One of the things I am is just open to the other alternatives, like welcoming Representative Loon's approach. Really, though, I think what has changed is after the last session, I went to the advocates and said, you've got to engage, because right now in the halls of the Capitol, It's paid lobbyists who want to keep it the way it is versus empty space. And I can't be your only voice. I can't push this rock up a hill by myself. And they really have, and I think that has changed the dynamic. I know I've certainly gotten folks to publicly come out and say they want to be supportive, where it's been easier to sit on the fence or just be quiet about it in the past.
Okay, so what's next? Have you been talking with other lawmakers? Are you feeling like the momentum is shifting in your favor?
So 2 phases going on before session. One is to strategize with other supporters like Representative Loon and figure out what approach we want to take legislatively. And the other is, and I'm a big fan of process. I don't like blindsiding people or trying to, strong arm tactic anyone. So I've made calls to Senator Metzen in the Senate and also to Representative Atkins in the House, as well as to the minority leads, and to say, there's clearly something going on here. There's a lot of public pressure. This perfectly fits with an unsession. The governor says he'll sign the bill. Where can we move? Where are you willing to go with this? And that will really determine, I think, what the approach is when we convene on February 25th. But to be clear, I think there's more energy around this than there's ever been.
Okay, well, we will track it during session. Of course, Senator Reinert, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.